Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this year's first Nordic Battery Thursday. My name is Heini Wallander. I come from Business Tampere, and where I work as a leader for our industry team. Happy to see you all online. And today we are focusing on the future trends for the second life battery applications. We will hear from the opportunities, challenges, and future trends from both industry and research. So we have a wonderful setup of speakers and panelists today. So happy to see you all online. This episode is organized together by SINTEF from Norway, Business Tampere and Eco Fellows from Finland, and TREASoURcE and SafeBESS projects. So a big collaboration behind this episode. Here you can also see the program for today. So 2 keynote speakers and then the panel discussion. During the program, we will also have the chat there where you can have discussion, share your thoughts about the program, and also ask questions. But if the speakers won't answer or someone from the audience to the questions directly in the chat, they will be collected and answered at the TREASoURcE webpage, which will be present. We'll show you the link to that page at the end of the webinar. But I think without further ado, we can move on in the program and start the actual content, which I'm really sure that you're eager to hear. So first we'll hear from Fride Fullum-Brewer. She's a senior research scientist at SINTEF, Norway. She has almost 20 years of research behind her at the with lithium-ion batteries. So very much of a background in this. And Fride will give us an introduction to the challenges and opportunities related to the second life of batteries. So welcome, Fride. Hi, nice to see you.
Thank you, Heini. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you perfectly well. And now
Great.
I give the stage to you. So please, Fride.
Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. And thank you for the introduction, Heini. And thank you to everyone listening online. As Heini said, I will try to give you a little bit of overview and set the stage for today's webinar. And I will start by giving a little bit of a look into the opportunities before I go into some of the challenges that we have identified. So first of all, this is a slide that I have borrowed from Batteries Europe, and they believe that everything we can electrify will be electrified, and I also believe that. And of course, we've seen a great increase in electrification in the transport sector, but also the power sector has great potential for electrification. And predictions show that by implementing batteries to a great extent in all of these sectors, this can contribute to total global GHG reductions by 16% in the transport sector and 23% in the power sector. So we see that the power sector is going to be a really important area to focus on. Now, what does that mean for the lithium-ion battery demands? These are numbers that are predicted by McKinsey, and also these are actual numbers from 2022, then 25 and 2030. And as we see, there's a really huge increase in the demand for lithium-ion batteries, specifically in the mobility sector, but we also see an increase in the stationary storage. And of course, this will put a great pressure on our resources. And do we really have enough material to cover all of these batteries in the future? Now, looking at the power sector in particular, we see that specifically this hour-to-hour flexibility needs is a really, really important area to focus on. And the figure to the left here shows um, the blue dots are numbers from 2021, which shows the flexibility needs per region. And we see that the predictions for 2030 shows an incredible increase in flexibility needs. Then the figure to, sorry, that was the figure to the left, the figure to the right shows the flexibility supplied by source. How is this flexibility going to be covered? And this shows the first, these are for advanced economies and also emerging markets and developing economies. The 2021 numbers are the actual values. And then it shows two different scenarios. The STEPS is a bit more conservative scenario, while the APS is more optimistic. But either way, we see that batteries, which is shown in the purple, will have a great contribution to covering this flexibility need. And with that in mind, we can also have a look at what does that mean for the global, what we call BESS, that's the Battery Energy Storage System capacity predictions. These are numbers that were published by McKinsey in August of last year, so quite recent. And we see that in actual numbers, the BESS capacity predicted by 2030 can reach up to maybe 700 gigawatt hours per year. And also, if we look closely at this figure, we see that the majority of this comes from utility. So 86% is on utility-based batteries. Now, what does that really mean for the resources, for the battery use? And can part of the solution then be reuse and repurposing of used EV batteries? We know that EV batteries that have reached their end of life in a car still has quite a lot of capacity, or can have quite a lot of capacity left that can be utilized for less demanding purposes. So what we have done in several of our research projects is to look into what are the challenges and barriers for these second life batteries to be used. Now, we have categorized these into 4 different main categories, which are technical, regulations and legislation, eco-design, and safety and reliability. I will not say much about the regulations and legislation today, but will be touched on to later in this webinar. But I will say a little bit about the technical, eco-design, and safety and reliability challenges. Now, for the technical and eco-design challenges, these go kind of hand in hand. But as we know, the battery technology has developed really quickly in the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years. We see new chemistries, new electrolytes, there's new form factors, different sizes of the cells, and the battery pack designs just continuously change. And that makes it more challenging to sort of streamline and automate processes for reuse. There's also a lack of access to state of health and historical user data. This will, to some extent, be amended by the new battery passport, but it's going to take quite a few years before that really makes a big difference. That means that battery diagnostics needs to be done, and that is time-consuming and very costly, then increasing the prices of the second life batteries. We also see that there's a really large difference between battery packs, how the car manufacturers sort of place the batteries in the car to make it as space efficient as possible, and use of glues and epoxies and how they sort of fix it to it makes it a lot more difficult to remove and disassemble and sort of automate these processes. So there's also a lot more technical challenges, but these are some of the main that we have identified. Now, for safety and reliability, this is a really big issue. So what we see is that the lack of standards and regulation is actually quite a challenge. There's also not nearly enough information regarding battery rooms, requirements for where you place a battery, a large battery system. How do you do it safely? Are the materials, construction materials, good enough? How to do the ventilation? It's a lot of there are no really standards to follow there, and that also makes it more challenging to perform proper risk assessments, meaning that that's often sort of overdone, so that for the implementation, it ends up being a lot more costly than maybe it necessarily has to be. Um, for transportation, there are already quite a few regulations in place. And of course, lithium-ion batteries are considered dangerous goods, which are causing a bit of logistics challenges. They're necessary, but maybe there's also things that can be done in that area to make things easier. And of course, we do see storage of batteries is a bit of a challenge. We've had a number of incidents just in Norway where we see batteries that are stored catching fire, and they're not stored properly and they're not handled properly. So this is also something that's a bit of a challenge. And of course, all of these events will lead to a very negative public perception, and so then people are afraid um, to install these batteries. Continuing a bit on this topic, we also see that for batteries to be efficiently utilized, they're still quite expensive. So utilizing it to a great extent is going to be quite important. And there is a great development in this area of control systems, but there's still quite a ways to go to, I think, optimize this use of batteries in the energy system. And of course, the reliability with regards to sort of sudden death or loss of energy capacity, it's always greater with a used battery than a new battery. But of course, if the more we see development of prediction methods, we can maybe get more reliability also for second life batteries. And with the fire extinguishing, I think we all know that that's quite a bit of a challenge. Currently, there are really no proper fire extinguishing technology that can handle lithium-ion battery very, very well. And last but not least, what we see, people operating the batteries, they also don't have the knowledge or the training to do so. So we see from some of the case studies that we've done in Norway, things aren't really done right, which is often not a big issue, but it can cause problems. It can cause dangerous situations. So there's a lot of things that can be dealt with in this area. And with that, I'm just going to leave you with one question that I hope that we can, to some extent, answer through this webinar today. And that is, how can we contribute to making second life batteries more mainstream? With that, I say thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Fride. Very interesting. And as we see, there are a lot of topics to consider. But thank you. You left us with a lot of things to think about. Thank you so much. And next, we have Marita Järvik from EcoStor, also from Norway. EcoStor is a Norwegian company that develops second life solutions based on batteries that have gone through the first life cycle in vehicles. And Marita will give us a talk about the current and expected future trends for the second life battery. Welcome, Marita.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for letting me be a guest in this webinar. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the current application in EcoStor's second life battery system and what we in EcoStor sees as the future trends for the second life batteries. First of all, I want to talk to you about why batteries are and will be important in the future, and why this market is so fast growing. I will later on talk about which trends we in EcoStor sees in this market, And then it's actually nice to know why we believe in these trends. We have all maybe heard about the 2 degrees goal that says that we have a goal to limit the global warming to under 2 degrees. Thus, the temperature rises above 2 degrees, it will actually be a huge consequence for our planet. So, to achieve this goal, we must fully commit to the renewable energy. And the top picture here shows the total energy sources that we have. And this is not the energy sources that we have in Norway or in Sweden. This is the total, the global. As you can see, in 2024, we are still heavily involved in coal, oil, and gas. We have only just begun to move over to the green shift. So actually, we are not good at all. But we have to be. And as you can see, the goal is to fully be over in renewable energy in 2075. And if this is going to be a reality, we need batteries. So the batteries will be extremely important. We will need energy storage, and that will be needed in large scale. If we want it or not, we have to increase our knowledge around batteries. For us to fully commit to the renewable energy, then a lot of the energy just have to go through a battery. The picture below shows the total energy carriers that we have, also totally for the world. This clearly in the yellow and light yellow shows us how big scale the electricity and storage of the electricity will be in the future. So if we are going to reach our goal, the renewable energy is the main key. But what can a battery actually do? I would like to tell you a little bit about how EcoStore battery system work. A battery system can do different things, but the main application are a spot price optimization, which means that you storage the energy when the costs are low, so that you can use the energy later when the costs are high. Then you have peak shaving, which means that the battery are cutting your highest peak during the day. It can storage excess production from solar cells. And we often advise that if you are getting solar panels, please fill the entire roof, not just half of it, so that you can overproduce and storage it. And then you have the frequency market. This is a market where you can sell energy from your own battery system to the grid. This often means a lot of money, and it can shorten the payments period with many years. The picture here, I've picked out a realistic scenario for you, so you can get a little picture of what a battery can help you with during a day. This picture you can see is a thought situation in a thought family home, a normal Saturday. You can see from 3 at night, this family buys the energy, and they have some peaks from 6. And then you can see the yellow part. This is the solar production, and then the green part is the energy storage. The black part is consumed, which this family actually don't pay for because of the sun. And the dark blue is consumed that they also don't have to pay for because of the energy storage. And you can see the peak, the high peak at 12. This is not a normal, for example, Monday, because then you are at work or at school. This is a Saturday, this is a weekend. Here they maybe have a shower, charge the car, made lunch and so on. But luckily for this family, they had a battery, so they don't have to pay for this week. And if the battery had been a little bigger, they could have storage more of the sun. They didn't have to sell so much sun out to the grid, and they could have paid for the energy the whole day. So this was just a quick scenario to show you how it could look like. Then I would like to show you how we do it in EcoStore. EcoStore reuses the whole battery pack. That means that we don't open up the battery pack like many of our competitors does. And why we don't do that is different reasons. But one of them is it lowers the costs. It reduces working hours. It takes time to open up and pluck out all the cells. It reduces materials cost. And maybe the main reason is it retains all approvals and security. An EV battery is built for the car, and in your car you have your kids and family, and it's giving us a good feeling that we retain all these approvals and the security. And at least it makes it a lot more easier to transport. So this is how it looks at the end, and you can use this in a container, as you can see here, or in a building, as you can see under here. This building is Skipe in Bergen, and EcoStore think it's funny to see that Skipe uses the Second Life battery system and EcoStore in their marketing. And how does it work? How does the battery system work? This little black box is EcoStore's own technology, which allow us to talk with the battery and get out the information that we need about the battery. It has a uniform interface that fits all the battery. It's scalable, which makes it easy to build the system bigger if you need it. And it supports all applications, like, for example, peak shaving and spot price optimization. And turnkey, the system came turnkey. It means that the battery is there, the rack is there, and our management system is there. And then back to where we started, why batteries are and will be so important in the future. How do we see the future? Which trends are we looking at? What we see is very relevant is recycling of the battery and recycling versus reuse. It happens a lot in recycling as we speak, and it comes new rules in the new battery regulation in EU at this time. Plus, we know that there is more and more EV on the road. It has been a huge growth last year. And this means that there will soon be a lot more batteries that are done in the car, done with their first life, and all of these batteries needs to be handled. The trend we see here is that the car manufacturer contacts us, EcoStore, to hear what they should do with all the batteries. It costs a lot to get rid of them. It costs them to get it recycling. So the battery is a huge cost for them. Therefore, they ask EcoStore to build them a system with the Second Life batteries. And suddenly, the batteries that first were a cost now actually starting to make money. So we think that this is going to be a big thing in the future. And we also know that the global demand increasing, which will actually make a battery a necessity. And based on different analysis we have read and heard about, we think that the battery chains could grow actually about 30%. And batteries for mobility application, like electrical vehicle, will account for the vast majority of demand. But it's not everywhere that second life battery fits. Yes, we will have a huge flow in access to battery lives, to second life battery system, but it's not like we can put this everywhere. The main market for second life battery system is the mid market, where it's not the highest requirement for a battery. The second life battery is no longer good enough for the car, but it's good enough for medium use. For example, a production building or a hotel, and often in combination with solar panel. We in EcoStore, we see a lots of trend coming, and we could probably talk about trending for hour, but I think this is the most relevant trends that we see now, and we can't wait to see what the future brings. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Marita. Very enlightening and very nice to hear about the concrete example that you have for the second life use of batteries and interesting ways how to actually make it happen. So thank you very much. Next, we move on to the panel discussion. We have 5 amazing panelists here today, and I will introduce every one of them. But overall, our panel will comprise of 3 parts, as I mentioned in the beginning. First, we talk a little bit about the opportunities, then challenges, and then about the future trends. But let's welcome our speakers. First, we have Claude Jensen, who has almost 40 years of experience in the field of lithium-ion technology. Wonderful to have you on board. Claude works for Recharge, where he has been for 10 years, and they are representing the rechargeable battery industry's interests in the European bodies and international transport organizations. So you've made a lot of impact also on the batteries regulation. So welcome, Claude. Great to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for the nice introduction.
Next, we have Jonna Hynynen. She comes from RISE, where her research is focused on fire safety of batteries, from battery cells to storage systems. And RISE, the Research Institute of Sweden, actually has one of the largest fire protection engineering departments in the world. Wonderful to have you here, Jonna. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the kind introduction.
Third, we have Lars Bastad, who works for Siemens Energy in Norway. He has 40 years of experience with power electronics and battery energy storage systems, both onshore and offshore applications. I think you have a lot to give us here in this panel. Siemens is, of course, one of the global leaders in energy technology overall. So wonderful to have you here, Lars.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction.
Then we have Mikko Valter from Sandvik, where he has worked in Finland for more than 17 years. He leads the electrification research for machinery and other machinery fleet and supporting infra-related topics. Sandvik is, of course, a global provider of advanced products and services for mining and rock excavation, so giving us a little bit different perspective. Welcome, Mikko.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to be here.
Excellent to have you. And last but definitely not the least, we have Tuomas Messo. He's one of the founders at Cell Life Technologies. It is a startup, actually a Finnish spin-off from Tampere University. And their core technology is fast state of health measurement that can provide us with a safe and reliable second life batteries. So welcome also to bring your perspective to the discussion. Welcome, Tuomas.
Yeah, thank you for the chance to join this panel.
Well, absolutely. And very well, a lot of experience and different perspectives to the topic. So we're happy to spend the next half an hour discussing these topics together with our panelists. But as I mentioned, we'll start from the opportunities. And I think, Lars, you will be the perfect person first to explain us a little bit, in your perspective, coming, of course, from the energy sector, how do you see what are the biggest opportunities related to the second life batteries? And especially from technology and business perspective, you have a long history, so it would be great to hear your thoughts on this matter.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, because one of the main reasons is actually we need then to look at first, why are we replacing the batteries from the first use of the batteries? That means, no, you see, typically it will be either applications where the demands of the battery, if the battery is come to its end of life, of course there will be no second use of the battery. But in very many applications, as was mentioned, the electric vehicles, but you also have marine offshore sector and also other sectors where either the capacity of the battery compared to the weight and such things are actually causing the batteries to be replaced, because they cannot allow the degradation to go to the end of life of the batteries, but they need to replace the batteries on an earlier stage. That means there will be a lot of rest capacity within the batteries, although it will not fulfill the requirements for the first life application. That gives us the possibility, for instance, batteries used in cars, etc., as you mentioned, when you then have a second life opportunities like energy storage systems not on movable applications, but on standing application, typical, for instance, charging stations for cars and buses and all that stuff. You have also combined with the solar systems to cover the not producing hours. Those applications will have the possibility, because they are not have the limitations due to space and weight and other requirements that are causing the batteries to be replaced at an early stage.
Well, absolutely. You gave us good examples of how we can utilize batteries from different sources, and how are they utilized also in different perspectives. What about Mikko? From Sandvik, you have maybe a different kind of idea. What in your opportunity, or in your view, are the opportunities for reuse and repurposing? What can it give to the electrified machines and in your industry?
So as also you mentioned, kind of in mining industry, Sandvik is most known about mobile machines, and we already have electrified machines in our offering. But when we think of mobile machines, when they are operated by diesel power, no one needs to teach our customers how to do the detailed logistics and refueling. But now when we go into electrification, the electric grid, the energy management comes more and more critical. And that is when there is a kind of challenge like that, it is again a business opportunity for someone. And Sandvik wants to be the player instead of just being a supplier of mobile machines that are in the production systems and, for example, automation for the machines. We want to be also a partner to our customers on the energy management of the grids. And in there, we are talking exactly similar kind of phenomena and challenges as has been already mentioned in the previous presentations, like the flexibility of the energy infra. Several energy sources will be there, like renewables, some of them controllable, some of them not, peak shaving, and so forth and so forth. So we want to solve that challenge with our customers, and then we see a lot of potential for these second life batteries, battery buffering, and so forth to support the what we could kind of think of fixed energy infrastructure.
Thank you very much. I think one is, of course, that there's the possibility. Well, there's the opportunity present. There are a lot of batteries that need second life, and then you are taking that opportunity. And actually, that's a big strategy change as well. So I think we are in the middle of a big transition and transformation in a lot of the industries where companies need to rethink their strategies. And I think that's exactly what you described for Sandvik to be part of that kind of business. So it's a very, very groundbreaking, I would say. Thank you. Does anyone else from the panel want to mention something about the opportunities? Would you have something to add to the opportunities part? Claude, yes, please.
May have a comment, yes, because indeed my role here is in the regulation, and I would say that the regulation from the point of view of opportunity has made a contribution simply by the fact that second life was considered, and energy storage, as a potential field of development that was several times expressed. And the regulation role was and is indeed to now have a clear framework for this development, particularly questions that were raised about the so-called producer responsibility, which is an important part when it's come to deciding whether to recycle or to secondly use a battery. Then the regulation, the European regulation, which is now applicable and will progressively be implemented, clarifies all the duties and responsibility about when remanufacturing or repurposing a battery, as was presented previously. Now, who is the producer and who will be responsible for the end of life? And the big benefit of this legal clarity about the framework for the market, we believe as Recharge is indeed an opportunity or a benefit for the industry to have a clear, fair framework to develop new business models and understand really what are the legal consequences of starting or not starting, or deciding to reuse or deciding to recycle the battery. That was, I think, an important benefit of the new batteries regulation.
Well, thank you very much. That gave us a good insight also from the regulation perspective. And that would actually bring me to the next question, a little bit more in detail about the regulation, which you have a long experience in working with. As we all know, the recycling is covered to a large extent in the current regulation, and there are very specific requirements for level of recycling, amount of recycled materials to be used in the new cells, but especially on this repurposing and reuse of EV batteries. How do you see, like at the current situation and in the future, will the regulation promote or hinder the second life applications?
And it's a good question. As I mentioned just a few seconds ago, I believe the regulation can help the second life industry development. So it's a way to promote, just to set a clear framework and conditions. What are the attached liability, responsibility to produce batteries? These can be considered certainly as an opportunity, but there are still threats or potential limitations that, and we believe the regulation could do more, and that we as Recharge, we are still, of course, strongly working together with the European Commission and the Joint Research Center, and of course representing the whole industry, identifying key input that the regulation could add or clarify to even more facilitate and generate potential market for the second life. It was mentioned particularly by the presentation on SINTEF a few minutes ago on the need of technical support to facilitate second life batteries. It was mentioned particularly about, for example, the diagnosis of battery, understanding the battery management system, and enabling the battery management system to be usable to manage the battery for a second life. For the moment, the good point is that this is something that is mentioned in the regulation, and this is a very important point indeed. But at the regulation level, we only have high-level principle. And for the moment, it's not very clear exactly how this will be implemented in the field. What will be exactly the requirements when it comes to communication of battery management information from the first producer to the second life producer? You understand a lot of things are more specific. You cannot generally make very technical statement on what should or should not be transferred, what is intellectual property of the first manufacturer, and what is part of the so here there is more work to clarify this point. Another very important point was mentioned, and I will stop there, is indeed the risk of safety. We all understand that the second life and the end of life are a field where the safety risk around the battery may be because the battery then be dismantled, reused in conditions that were intended for, and then there is a significant risk of reassessing and redeveloping the safety for the second life of the battery. And clearly, we recognize here there is potentially a lack of standards, particularly. So the batteries regulation here again made some statement about this. There is a part in the regulation that describe what type of safety protection should be ensured to for the battery energy storage systems, particularly. But this is, for the moment, still under development together with the standardization bodies. And again, here, potentially, as Recharge, we intend to have a role to clarify how to implement and what standard should be recommended to ensure that safety for the second life is ensured in an equivalent way to the safety of new batteries. And that's how, of course, two examples of further clarification and development needed compared to the, let's say, high-level statement that you can find in the batteries regulation.
Well, thank you very much. That was a very extensive reply, and I think we learned a little bit of what also is to come, and that it is a struggle in a way between enhancing the recyclability, but also the second life. Thank you for your thoughts. Would be also interesting to hear, Tuomas, I think this analysis of the health of batteries was mentioned already a few times. Would you like to comment a little bit on this challenge that was mentioned?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, I had few years ago, I still had a car that was from year 87. So that's like few years younger than me. And in Finland, the cars usually are used more than 20 years on the road. So we kind of use everything until the end of life. So I'm a bit skeptical how we could get like full EV battery packs to these grid storages, because the tendency is to use the car as long as it can last. But usually the EV pack is or goes bad because there's one module or even just one cell that goes bad. So I think that in a large scale, we are looking more into reusing the modules themselves, or even later on replacing the cells. But the challenge there is to find out which of the modules are still safe to use and which still have capacity left and which are actually dangerous that shouldn't be used. So we should have some kind of standardized performance and safety test that could be accepted by everyone, so that we can agree what is the actual state of health and the lifetime of the battery pack. Also, the test should be fast because we don't want to spend like hours or days to test one module. It doesn't make too much sense. And that's more like what we are doing. So we are now developing methods and devices to do this fast check of EV modules and also all kinds of lithium-ion batteries. So I think that's one challenge is related to the safety and performance of these second life batteries. But we are working with that, and I know there are other players who are also working with that. Another maybe challenge, but also maybe an opportunity comes like how business models and price for these second life batteries will be in the future. Because now anyone who uses batteries, it's like it's kind of a burden for them. They have to pay several euros per kilogram to dispose of that. But I think soon we will be in a situation that we start looking at that pile of waste as a pile of money somehow. So I hope it goes to that way.
Well, thank you. That's giving us a very good perspective also, and kind of a different kind of a challenge on how to address that. What about Lars? Would you comment on how the challenges, technological, business related, could hamper the second life applications?
Yeah, of course, as it was already mentioned, we're talking about second life of the batteries, then of course the state of health of the actual battery modules is the very important task. And of course it will also be related to what kind of information do we get from the first use of the batteries, and also how good are the monitoring systems related to giving a correct view of the state of health of the batteries going to be used for the second life. Because especially we're talking about batteries coming from applications, typically, as I said, cars and other high power applications, then it's very important. Then normally they will replace the batteries at a state of health of 80 or 85%, because otherwise they will need to have a very huge system compared to the space available, and also having all the weight of the batteries, instead of then replacing them at 80 or 85% state of health and then allowing some second use of the batteries to utilize them down to the end of life, which will be then somewhere around 60, 65, 70%, depending on the battery chemistry. But as I said, the important part is how do we know that what is the state of health and what information should we require from the first application related to both calendar aging and also the cyclic aging of the batteries. How are they operated?
Yeah, that's a very, very important point. And I think, Jonna, you are really a true expert in the safety related issues. What, in your opinion, are the greatest challenges? And would you actually have any recommendations for safe operation of a large battery system?
Yes, I've been listening in to all the excellent panel members and also Frida's speak in earlier on today, and I can only agree that there is issues in the standards and regulations at the moment, and the fast technology development really enhances these difficulties to have the standards and regulations up to date. So this is a work area that I think that everyone in the industry needs to be aware of and also contribute to, so that the information that researchers and industry has reaches the standardization committees as well. And this couples to the safety assessment that Claude was speaking about. How do we assess second life batteries in a thorough way? Also, what Frida also touched upon are the storage requirements. There are also not really clear regulations regarding the mid storage of used cells. Transportation is also a large safety issue, how to transport these without having too high of a cost. And then also coming to disposal, and maybe this is not that relevant for EV batteries, but for lithium-ion batteries, the recycling facilities really needs to be aware of the dangers of faulty disposal of lithium-ion batteries and be prepared for this as well. And the last point that I would like to lift is in my eyes an opportunity. So it's a lack of skilled personnel that also has been mentioned earlier, but it also opens up for new fields of work and more job opportunities. But we need more skilled personnel to be able to work with the refurbishing and dismantling of battery packs.
Well, thank you, Jonna, very much. And I think that's like on all the things that we have discussed so far and all the kind of challenges that we have heard first on Frida's talk and now also in this discussion. I loved Jonna's idea of actually all these challenges are opportunities. And I think it's wonderful that we have, Tuomas, who has a new company, a startup that is solving one of the challenges with what they are doing. Mikko presenting a company that has transformed a little bit of their strategy in addressing also these challenges, because it is a systemic change. But I would also like to hear a little bit your thoughts on a question that Fride actually put to her presentation at the end. How can we contribute? It's a systemic change and we all need to do our part. What would you contribute? I would actually love to hear, like, very shortly from all of you. How do you feel that? How can you contribute? Who wants to go first?
I can start. I would just say collaboration and just getting all industry partners and research together. Collaboration is really the key to advance the field.
Lovely. What about Claude? You also had an idea in mind. We cannot hear you right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. So I have a very similar message, not exactly the same, but very similar. It would be about communication. And I would like to underline the example why I'm saying this, because it was mentioned this morning that fire extinguishing technology is not so well available or so much well known. And indeed, we confirm that there is a very well understood and management of fire and safety. But the problem is indeed about communication and then making everybody aware of the best available technique and the in-depth understanding of how to manage safety in case of fire of lithium batteries. This is available, but we recognize it's difficult to have each and every firefighter being aware of these best practices. And that's why I promote really very much this question about communicating and sharing the state-of-the-art information.
That's a very good one. Would the others want to share their ideas? Tuomas, please.
Yeah, like Claude mentioned, when we use second life batteries, we need to have some information from the first life, and that might be sometimes very tricky. So we try to solve that problem so that you don't need to go ask anybody like what was the first life. I think that is something we can measure. So I think we will contribute by providing that kind of technology.
Perfect. What about Lars and Mikko?
Yeah, I can start.
Yes.
Yes, I think one of the most important parts from, as I see it, is the cooperation between producers, customers, but also classification companies and regulators, etc. Because we need to have also the regulations and everything in place to fit into the actual situation. And of course, there will be lots of development. So that's also why research institutes are so important. And so the cooperation between all, and also how do we exchange the correct information or the necessary information between the first use of the batteries to the second use? How can the battery management system store the most of the important information, etc., and not giving the let's say the protected information that the first user of the batteries will not give away. And
Yeah, wonderful. Would Mikko still have something in mind?
Yeah, I would say that of course regulations will help in time, but I believe that the business needs are faster at the moment than the regulations. So I would say that we need industrial cooperation and communication, and at the moment all the batteries are kind of designed and optimized for the first life. And the question is, what would be the design be to support the second life? The second life design is not taken into account at the moment, and that is a question for the industrial suppliers. Maybe in first hand it's best practices and sharing info. Sooner than later on it will be maybe regulated, but industrial cooperation design for second life.
Yeah, the design is very, very important. Thank you for that. Then we actually have our last question. We would like to talk a little bit about the future trends of the second life battery applications. So, very specific question. Where do you see the technology and markets in 5 years? Mikko, would you go first?
In our industry, in mining, in 5 years, we will double, triple, or even more these kind of second life needs. Are suppliers and industrial players fast enough to even support the customer needs? I don't know, but the growth will be tremendous in coming 5 to 10 years.
That's a wonderful, wonderful scenario. What about Jonna, from safety perspective and your experience?
Yes, I think that we will. Yeah, I think that we will see more circular business models for sure. And I think that the growth of energy storage systems will rapidly increase both on the consumer market, but also for large scale applications.
That's a very good one. And finally, Tuomas, what do you think on this topic? Where are we in 5 years?
I think we will see more and more grid storages, like Marita mentioned in her presentation. There's already, you can make money out of frequency markets, and that becomes from the fact that if you just put solar and wind, the grid will become unstable. I know this because I actually did my PhD in that area, and I'm trying to solve that from the other perspective. So we need to have a lot of storage, otherwise we cannot get rid of fossil fuels. So I think a lot of second life batteries will go in that application.
So I think to conclude our good discussion in this panel is that there are plenty of opportunities, but it needs collaboration. It needs a systemic change from, well, as it was mentioned, technology and design, safety and reliability, but also from the business model perspective and thinking of the market in different ways. So I think it's also like, I think all you agreed or mentioned that collaboration is needed. And I think that's also wonderful that we have this Nordic collaboration to boost this. And every one of us has a role in this discussion. So very glad to have you all here. So thank you very much for all the panelists. A very good discussion, and hope to discuss, of course, in the future even more. So the world isn't ready yet, but let's work on making it to the 5-year scenarios that were given. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Then we actually move on to the closing part of our webinar. We've used the 1 hour, I think, perfectly well, and heard good discussion, good talks. This webinar is recorded. It will be available later on the Nordic Battery Thursday platform and Nordic Battery collaboration webpage, so it's accessible later on as well. And on behalf of all the organizers, I would like to thank Business Finland, Business Sweden, Innovation Norway, and Nordic Innovation for the collaboration and opportunity to have this webinar today. Thank you all so much for watching and have a lovely day. Thank you. Bye-bye.